for a particular event or for a particular cause, maybe a particular charity. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, of course, the Ducks were wearing the pink helmets for breast cancer awareness. Well, now there is another university that's doing the same thing, and this one's kind of drawing, I guess you could say, some controversy. Northwestern University is catching some flack over uniforms it plans to wear against Michigan that show what look like blood stains on an American flag. And the Wildcats are trading their familiar purple for the red, white, and blue when they host the Wolverines. And they say that they're doing this to honor the Wounded Warrior Project. And the Under Armour jerseys have the stars and stripes, and they'll be auctioned off after the game with the proceeds going to the project. But the uniforms drawing all sorts of reactions. So we decided, well, let's talk to somebody who is in the service. Colonel Kimberly Olson, she's retired from the United States Air Force. She's also the CEO and president of Grace After Fire on the Wake Up Call. Good morning, Colonel.
Good morning, Bill.
Thanks for your service. We appreciate it.
Ah, my pleasure.
What's your take on this? Is this much ado about nothing, or do folks have a little bit of grounding to be irritated?
People have pretty strong feelings about the appropriate use of the American flag, and on one end of the spectrum, the code that talks about the flag says it shouldn't be worn as a costume or a uniform. It says it right in it. But on the other end of the spectrum, here we are having this debate and this discussion and the ability to wear the flag. And all that freedom is brought to you by the men and women who wear the military uniform. So in a way, it's kind of a good thing that we have this ability to do this in our country.
All right, so my question, I guess, is directly to you. Are you offended by it?
Well, it's over the top. I'll tell you, wearing the stars and stripes on your feet is not something that most of us who wore the uniform appreciate. But I don't see the blood. What I see is basically a flag that's distressed. It's kind of got that antiquing look to it. And in a way, it is kind of a subtle reminder that war is not a video game. It brings out the worst of humanity and the best of humanity, and that we lost a kid on Sunday in Afghanistan. So for some families, the war is still going on. And Wounded Warrior is a great nonprofit that does some really good work with some of our veterans.
What I'm hearing here, reading between the lines, is you're not terribly enamored with the idea, but you understand the reason for it. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, I think that's a fair conclusion, and I think that it goes to the point that America's in a good place in honoring its veterans, and it understands that only 1% of the nation serves in uniform these days, and that some of these kids need some help as they transition from military service back into civilian world.
Which is something that actually you do, right?
Absolutely. We help women vets help themselves. We have sort of this perfect storm of 250,000 women who've gone into Iraq and Afghanistan. First time we've ever had women in such a large number in combat. And some of those gals are struggling because the legacy systems that were set up to help vets were built around a male model. So we really work to get them back into their families, their communities, and back into the employment world.
All right, and as I mentioned at the beginning here, that you are the CEO, president of Grace After Fire. Describe what Grace After Fire is and how you came to sort of become involved in it.
You can find information on us with graceafterfire.org, but what we did is found that there was this lacking of helping women veterans. It's, women who've been to combat process trauma differently, and they recover from it a little bit differently. So Grace After Fire stepped in to fill that gap. And we've worked with about 5,000 women here in the state of Texas, and now we're kind of going on a national platform. We do a peer-to-peer model where women vets sit with other women vets and help them make that walk.
What is the biggest difference in the transition process between men and women when it comes to coming back to the States and reintegrating into what we call normal life?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think what we've found in working with female vets over the last couple of years is that women have a really bad habit of taking care of everybody else first and themselves last. And if at any point you need to be a good leader, you got to lead yourself. And when it's kind of like the old adage: when mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. And so she really needs to make sure she's on a steady platform, and then she can be a great wife or a mother or a sister or a woman or an employee. And I applaud the companies that reach out to actively employ veterans. We know that work makes warriors well, and if you got the capacity to hire a vet, do it. They're battle tested. They get safety. They get chain of command. So they're a add to your company.
On a different topic, but sort of connected, what is your personal opinion of the VA and its ability to handle what it's going to be dealing with once all of these vets make it back to the United States? I mean, we keep hearing about increased cases of PTSD, real high levels of suicide. I mean, a variety of different, major head injuries that are going to cause long-lasting difficulties and problems. Do you think the VA right now, as it stands, is equipped to deal with it? It's going to have to deal with over the course of the next couple of decades?
The VA is all we got, so let me just start with that. It's a $9 billion organization that's set up, and like any huge bureaucracy, it has growing pains, and I think, especially for women vets, it got caught behind the power curve as far as serving us. They didn't have clinics, they didn't have docs, they were kind of caught off guard. That's the bigger picture. On the smaller side, most people who are caregivers within the VA system are caring people. They really want to do right by the vet. I think sometimes they get overloaded with the caseloads because there aren't enough docs, not enough shrinks, not enough counselors, not enough health providers for women. And so, again, I think it's darndest, and it's trying to catch up with something that I think they got caught off as the number of injuries. We've had almost 30,000 kids come back from Iraq and Afghanistan that have some pretty significant injuries, and that is a good thing because that means the medical care at the field is phenomenal, but it's a challenge because folks that wouldn't have made it in the field now are making it, and to your point, they need long-term care. And you know what? They went in harm's way on the behalf of us, and they ought to get it for the rest of their lives, as should their families.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colonel Kimberly Olson on the wake-up call. She's CEO, president of Grace After Fire. Google Grace After Fire, and you can find out more about what she and her organization does. Colonel, thanks for joining us on the wake-up call. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Bill. You have a great day.
Thanks, you too. 648 News Radio 1120 KPNW.
Kind of got hard to go anymore with the uniform conversation when she was, she basically said, she's not enamored with it, but it is bringing discussion to a situation. And if people that aren't from Northwestern, if they go and they bid and pay some, high amounts of money, big donations, that's not a bad thing. But you can see where people would have a total problem with it. What about if you're a player and you've got family members that are, maybe even died in combat? I could see where they would have issues. I'm curious what, because it probably, it started with the athletic department, the university, and how lengthy a discussion they had with people in the military and people that, would have some severe, serious attitudes about this. And we're talking about the uniform.
Well, I mean, obviously they're doing it for Wounded Warriors. You'd have to figure that they've at least talked to them, and Wounded Warriors signed off on it. Said, yeah, okay.
If they just went, hey, no one's going to, have a problem with this because it's for a great cause. I hope they had more of a discussion than just said, you know what? I mean, who's going to argue? Because it's a great, and it is. It's a great organization that does great things, but I hope they wrestled with it